Welcome to the Jones Gallery Lecture Series. I'm Sarah Jones, the curator at Jones Gallery. We are a contemporary art gallery in St. John, New Brunswick. Our core mandate is to present work by contemporary Canadian artists, but art education is also important to us, and we think that art history should be accessible, understandable, and free. That's why we hold public lectures at the gallery and produce videos like this one. To keep this series free and open, we rely on the donations of our viewers. Today's video is generously brought to you by Michael, Anne, and Deb. Thank you. If you would like to support our efforts in this, please donate at jonesgallery.ca/arthistory. That's where you can also see all of the other videos we've done, and the link will be below in the video notes. Today I'll be talking about another Caravaggio painting. This one is called the Crucifixion of Peter, the Crucifixion of St. Peter from 1601. This is from a church called the Santa Maria del Popolo in Rome. Caravaggio had received a commission to do chapel paintings, so paintings that would be installed within the church, kind of in a side chapel, for another church in Rome, the San Luigi de Francese, about St. Matthew, and those were received with everyone loved them. Like it kind of shook the foundations of the art world in Rome around 1600, vaulted Caravaggio into kind of fame and renown, and because of those paintings at San Luigi de Francese in the Contarelli Chapel, he received this commission to do the two side paintings for Santa Maria del Popolo. The Santa Maria, as as the name connotes, del Popolo. It's a church on the Piazza del Popolo. So this is a big deal. I mean, both churches are a big deal, but this was this kind of a symbol of his growing importance as a working artist in Rome. Very prestigious church. The square itself. This is one of the kind of traditional ancient entrances to Rome. It's a massively impressive exterior space, and like I said, this is kind of one of the important churches at that entrance to Rome. He does the two side paintings here, and I think so. The altarpiece is done by a different artist. So that's the one in the center here. It's by an artist named Cerasi. Nobody cares about that one. Everyone just goes to see the two Caravaggio paintings. It's quite an experience, actually. Maybe I'll take a moment to talk about that, or what it's like to see these large religious works by Caravaggio in Rome. Caravaggio, it's hard to orchestrate a traveling exhibition. So you think of other artists from more or less from that period. So someone like Vermeer or Rembrandt, you can have a big blockbuster exhibition at the Met in New York or the National Gallery in London of Vermeer or Rembrandt, because their paintings are portable, right? So they can be loaned from different locations around the world and can travel about. But Caravaggio's, you have to go to, for the most part, you have to go to Rome to see his most important and most impressive works, because they're installed in the church. They're not for loan. They're there, and you're not seeing these works in a museum setting, so it's almost a little awkward to see them. So you're not allowed. You can't enter the chapel itself. This is more or less the viewpoint that you would have if you can get close enough. The lights go off. You have to put coins in a little box to turn the lights on. It's really an experience. So like, you're seeing the work not kind of in a sterile museum setting, but you can, it's more or less hasn't changed in 400 years. It kind of has that distinctive Rome church smell, and it's a little dark, a little gloomy at times, but yeah, it's kind of a, there's no kind of an unmitigated kind of art experience here. The same kind of experience that someone would have had in 1602. Look at that. Okay, that's enough preamble. So today we'll be looking at the painting on the left. This is the Crucifixion of Peter. Just another important thing, one more little tidbit. Caravaggio was working here in oil on canvas, which was he was really an innovator of this kind of style and approach. Typically in Rome, fresco was the more accepted medium for creating large religious works like this. So that's painting kind of in plaster, essentially. But Caravaggio was using oil paint, which again, like some artists in the Renaissance, Italian artists were beginning to use. So if you watch my video on Leonardo's Mona Lisa, Leonardo was experimenting with oil paint. But really, Caravaggio becomes the Roman master, the Italian master of the use of oil paint here. So he's the technique is changing with Caravaggio, or being innovative. Anyway, all right, on to the painting itself. So this is a story from the life of the Apostle Peter, who is crucified upside down, and we have a scene here just before his death, and there are three figures that we can't quite. I mean, one figure we can see with the red cloak on the left. We can get a little bit of a sense of his facial features, but they're more or less unidentified. Their facial features are obscured, and they are the executioners in effect. So they are attempting to raise the cross upon which Peter is crucified. There is an X-like kind of composition here. So you can follow the line from the upper left down along the body of Peter down to that blue cloak on the ground, and then there is another diagonal line from the top right, from the man with the rope, and that extends down the rope, but then also kind of extends down to the feet of the figure with the yellow pants here. So that foot in the bottom left corner. So we have kind of an axial or an X-shaped composition, which is more dramatic. So a kind of a triangle type of composition. So you think about the Mona Lisa, or kind of Renaissance compositions or paintings of the Madonna and Child. They tend to be in a kind of a triangular or pyramid structure, and that's very stable. So it's no sense of movement really in a triangular composition. But Caravaggio is often interested in the moment, or kind of the climax of the activity, or some kind of intensity of emotion or action, and so a pyramid structure kind of it keeps the action still, whereas a composition like this is more visually dynamic, is more active. And so you can see here with the straining of the figure, we know that if we moved kind of the time meter ahead just a half a second, that this composition would move, right? That it wouldn't be the same that we're seeing here. It's always important to think about the light source with Caravaggio, and as I mentioned, the three figures that are lifting Peter, they're kind of in shadow, but the light is coming from the left, and it's falling fully on the face of Peter, which with some of the other religious works I've been discussing, we can read the light as a metaphorical device or a narrative device, and so it's kind of this divine light or divine illumination, once again falling fully on Peter's face as he kind of strains and lifts himself to deliver one last sermon or one last message to his followers. The background is very sparse as usual. We can see a little bit of some kind of rocky landscape in behind, but it's quite dark. There's kind of a few rocks and pebbles in the foreground here. He pulls the composition together. There's almost like a color chord, or it's not a triad because there's 4 colors. So it's a 4. Anyway, whatever. We have a set of 4 colors that is unifying the painting and pulling it together. So it's like we have this blue cloak, like I said, in the bottom right, these yellow pants in the bottom left, and then the red cloak, and then the green pants. So this very essential colors, I mean the primary colors other than the green pants, kind of keeping the action and bringing our eyes then to the most important figure, which is Peter. So there's a sense of dynamism, of course, but then there's also a sense of balance through this deployment of this color scheme. Notice also the kind of realism. I've talked before about the realism and the naturalism that we see in Caravaggio's work. So rarely are figures idealized. So with the executioners, the figure in the bottom left, look at those grubby feet, right? They're very dirty. So we get a sense of kind of the reality of this, that this is a figure. We believe in this scene, that this figure is straining against the mud and the muck to hoist up the figure of Peter. Okay, I'll move on from that. So I talk often about the Baroque idea being, they were interested in the Baroque period, the Italian Baroque especially, so this is in the kind of early 1600s, about the immediacy of the narrative, breaking down barriers between the viewer and the scene or the figures depicted in the painting. And it was about clarity of message also. So I'd like to compare a painting from the Renaissance with Caravaggio's Crucifixion of Peter. And what I've pulled up for you is, this is a painting by Michelangelo of the same subject, created about 50 years prior, so at the very end of the more or less the end of the Italian Renaissance. And I'll show you this side by side. Here we go. Okay. So you can see with the Michelangelo version on the left, the kind of melee of figures that are surrounding Peter. So again, we have this kind of a gaggle of men who are working to hoist up the cross. But then there are also onlookers. There are various groups of people, kind of soldiers, and then followers, and a group of women in the bottom right, as you can see. And there's a distant landscape in the background. We can see the sky and the clouds, all kinds of information that we have here in the Michelangelo version. Compare that then to the sparseness of Caravaggio's version. This is a different. This is 50 years, right? The approach is remarkably different. Caravaggio changed everything essentially. And it's this simplicity, the reduction in the extraneous details. So not only in just the number of figures, but then also the extraneous details of the surrounding landscape. So he just pulls it all away. We don't need to see the sky. We don't need to see the clouds. There's a rock. So this is outside. There is a rock and there is ground and dirt, and that's it. And he needed the 3 figures to show the weight of the cross. So we have the 3 figures. And then also notice too how close we are. So there's a sense of distance that we have with the Michelangelo version, that we're away, we're a distance away from Peter. But with Caravaggio, with all of his works, we're pulled into the action. So notice the way that figure is cropped on the left with the red cloak, that we don't see all of his arm, we don't see all of the cross, we see the entire cross with the Michelangelo version. But Caravaggio is using a different compositional structure. So he's cropping. So this means it's like zooming in on a camera, right? So we're closer to the action. And we don't need to see the entire cross to know that it's there, right? But we're experiencing it. We're very much a witness or a participant in this scene. And why this is, like, what this the transition from from the High Renaissance to the Baroque period. I mean, it's a remarkable change in interests and depictions and composition and kind of narrative structure. Everything changes essentially. And why that is that there's you can find all kinds of other information on this elsewhere on the internet. But there is the Catholic Church was having a wee bit of difficulty in the 1500s, thanks to the Protestant Reformation was happening. So Henry VIII was causing them some difficulty in England. Martin Luther was doing his thing. Rome was being sacked by the troops of the Holy Roman Emperor Charles. There was a lot of things going on in the 1500s, and the part of the response. There was a Council of Trent that was convened, so kind of the leaders of the Catholic Church convened a series of meetings over the kind of late 1500s, and it was they were trying to figure out what to do. How do we counter the Reformation, right? And part of the idea with religious artwork is that there had to be a reduction in ambiguity. So Baroque art in a religious context, Italian Baroque art, so counter-Reformation art, no ambiguity about the narrative. We had to understand who was the central figure. We had to clearly understand the narrative. No confusion, no kind of superfluous details. The clarity of the message, and also the theatricality and not theatricality, the dynamism or the drama of the message had to be heightened also. So no more sitting back and kind of like relaxing and absorbing the church message. Like, no, the Catholic Church, this is the message. This is the Crucifixion of Peter. So you're with Baroque architecture and art, you're pulled in. Architecture almost literally reaches out into the street and grabs you. I mean, not literally, but it's starting to push out into the street. Anyway, Baroque architecture is a video for another day. But this is it. This is Renaissance versus Baroque art, kind of in a nutshell here. Here's a few details. Notice how that the face of the figure, the upper figure straining on the rope, it's just completely obscured. So we contrast that with the face of Peter. So we know, again, the clarity of narrative, that figure is not the important one. Peter is the important one. So again, if you're kind of a part of the illiterate masses who are wandering through the Santa Maria del Popolo, and you can't, I was just about to say you can't read, but that's implied through illiterate. Anyway, and you're looking at this painting, the story here is immediately clear. There's no confusion about who is the saint in this, and where our eyes are supposed to be drawn. And kind of the indignity also of this posterior that's been kind of thrust into our vision, this yellow rump, right? We wouldn't have seen something like that in the Renaissance. So it would have been much more of a composed kind of dignity and calmness to the scene, even though this is a horrific subject matter, obviously. But kind of the Caravaggio is sometimes he shows us the backs of figures, or he obscures their faces, and again is to create a situation where it reflects more of the world as we know it, right? So it's creating a three-dimensionality to this scene. So it's less like a frieze and more like a sculpture in paint. Oh, and the dirty feet. Yes, that's why I'm going to show you the detail here. There we go. Crucifixion of Peter. Crucifixion of Peter. Got to keep my saints straight. Okay. But thank you for watching, and you can support the lecture series by donating at jonesgallery.ca. Technical support by Caleb Jones. I'm Sarah Jones, and we'll talk to you again soon.